Okay, we are live. Hey everybody, how you doing? It is Friday, January 22nd. Thank you so much for joining us. This is my community manager hangout. Welcome. This is the community ran by you, all the community managers. So thanks a lot for joining us today. We have a absolutely fantastic panel. My name is Dom. Really excited to be able to jump into today's topic today. You know, in the past we've actually talked about several aspects of forums, including the harmony of social media and community platforms, how to choose a community platform, engaging a community on a platform, online community policies, and actually this upcoming Monday, Patrick O'Keefe is actually hosting a CMAD session on managing an online community volunteer program as it pertains to moderators. So we won't dig too deeply into moderation, but we will bring up several key aspects of forum best practices, including how to use automation to scale your relationship building and monitoring, as well as gamification elements and other questions that come up during our discussion. So yeah, if you couldn't tell by that mouthful that I just rambled off there for you guys, we have a lot of really awesome stuff to talk about today. So a big thank you to everybody hanging out over on Twitter. Thanks so much to Kristen and Carrie who are running things over on the Twitter side. Hello, everybody. And yeah, with that, we'll just jump in, we'll start introductions so we can get this thing moving along. And let's start with Paula. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I tune in to the panels almost every week, but this is my first time on, and I am a forum geek, so super excited about this topic.
Awesome, thanks Paula. Jen, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi guys, my name is Jen Chen. I'm the community manager at Lithium Technologies. Super excited to be back on CMDR Hangout. It's been way too long, and I am going to duel Dom for Awesome Count today, if you don't know what that is. We compete in a little friendly competition for CMDR Hangout on who says awesome more, so I just said it twice. There you go, Dom.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be good.
And hey everybody, I'm David Dewald, longtime community manager, frequent Hangout participant. Glad to be here today and talk about forums where I cut my teeth back in the day.
Awesome, thanks David. And for those who don't know, I'm Sherry Rohde and I'm the community manager at Magento, as well as co-produce CMDR Hangout here.
Fantastic. And like I said, I'm Dom, community manager, project manager for BTC Revolutions, as well as a co-host here with Sherry and Brew. Brew, as you notice, not here. He's actually in the air flying out to the West Coast to do a little bounce between Seattle and LA and getting stoked for Monday, which is CMAD. Let's get a whoop whoop for everybody who's excited for CMAD. And actually on that, let's just start there. What is everybody most looking forward to when it comes to CMAD?
Well, since it relates to this topic, and you mentioned it at the top of the hour, I will actually be on Patrick's panel for volunteer mods and stuff like that. So it should be really exciting. It's always fun to talk about. I've had a team of 200 moderators, volunteers working with me before, so it's really can be fun and challenging at the same time.
I think for me, there's a couple things. One is Rachel Medanek has been doing the CMAD songs. If you haven't seen that tweet, I'll throw it out soon. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the results from that. Another is that I'm going to be running a panel on B2B communities with Joe Cottrell, who I swear is like my role model in all things community. So that'll be exciting. And it's actually also really fun for those of you who haven't seen this, but seeing Brew, Dom, and Sherry get progressively more tired and delirious throughout the day and seeing their personalities change, that's always fun. So just a couple of things there.
I'm looking forward just to tuning into a bunch of the panels. There are some really great topics and things that don't typically get covered at conferences, like community management, self-care, personal branding. So I'm really looking forward to some of the topics. I'm also really excited to hear about the award announcements. I see a lot of friends and colleagues who are amazing and were nominated this year. So I'm really looking forward to celebrating fellow community managers on Monday.
Jen, I'm gonna have to call you out for looking forward to watching us like go delirious from lack of sleep all day. Thanks for that. But it is always fun, so I guess I'm looking forward to consuming probably really unhealthy amounts of caffeine. But actually, what'll be really fun the following day is we're doing a CMAD brunch here in LA, and I've been here for like 7 months and haven't really connected with the LA community management community, so definitely looking forward to that.
Awesome. You know, Paul, you actually took the second part of yours. You know, I'm the chair for the awards committee, and it's been a treat for me so far to be able to read through all of the nominations. This year, I mean, we almost got 100 more nominations this year than we did last year. So it's really awesome to see everybody talking about their friends and fellow community managers, and it's always one of my favorite things to be able to, you know, be the one with the envelope that gets to say who won. Even though like everybody is super deserving, just to be able to give that recognition to people, I think is really, really cool. And on that front, just so you guys know, make sure you check back to the nominations that we put out earlier this week. We'll actually be adding all of the Twitter handles for that. That's my fault that they weren't on there, so make sure you check back so you can, you know, follow the world. And then also we are going to be announcing later on tonight the actual awards finalists, which is going to be really cool. So keep an eye out, see if your name's on that list. But yeah, so that's what I'm really stoked for. And, you know, getting delirious and staying up for 24 hours like it's college is going to be just bonkers again. Awesomely bonkers. So let's jump into question number 2. So which community platforms do you guys have experience working with?
Sure. So I have experience working with forums on a number of different platforms. I've used programs such as Discourse before if you want to build your forums sort of outside of your network. But what I'm currently doing is we have internal forums which are connected to our website here at VHX. And then I also have my first experience with forums is with this really archaic system called Blackboard, which is used in higher education, which is the first community that I worked with.
Oh gosh, so now that you mention it, I think I used Blackboard in school. Although this was for high school, but obviously I have experience with Lithium Technologies, and in my previous roles I've also worked with Salesforce and Jive.
Uh-oh, we lost David. I'll jump in. I use Lithium now, so I have experience with that, and in the past we've also used, you know, we were using Expression Engine, and I don't know if the forums are actually part of Expression Engine or if they were brought in through another app. I'm not for sure, because at that point I was a moderator, so I wasn't in all the behind-the-scenes stuff. But then I've played around on others, like vBulletin and whatnot. So we'll get feedback from David when he comes back. I know he's been a Jive user, but he had to reboot his computer. So, Dom?
Yeah, I admittedly have not used too many forums as a community manager. Thinking about it, when you said Blackboard, I just got like some chills that went down my spine thinking of all the times I had to use that in school and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, all of the ones that you guys have mentioned, I know we have a lot of friends that are in the community that actually work for a lot of those platforms. So, you know, it's definitely awesome that we have a lot of representation, I would say, in here. And just so you guys know, feel free. I'm, you know, paying attention to the chat. We've got Carrie and Kristen over there. So if you guys have any experience with certain ones, feel free to send it. And if you have any questions as we go along as well, I feel like today we're gonna have some time to answer your questions about this kind of stuff as well. So we'll jump into question 3. So how do you onboard community members to help them feel welcome?
Great. So in terms of forums, for me, part of that is if I notice somebody's in the forums for the first time, definitely do a welcome shout out, make sure that they feel we're paying attention to them. One of the things that I do on a weekly basis, I work with a community of filmmakers. So I pay attention to if any of the filmmakers on our platform are being shouted out in the press, if they have their series or film showing at a festival, anything like that, and I do a weekly shout out thread of that. But then what I also do is email those individual community members to let them know, hey, we gave you a shout out in the forums, but also congratulations, this is such an achievement to have. So I find that it connects people, but it also keeps them engaged so that they don't go away from the forums once they've started using them.
I think for me, I've tried a couple things, and one thing to keep in mind as you think about welcoming them is what kind of community members do you have? So for example, in one of my previous communities, I ran a community for small business owners, and so the struggle for them was really real. They're trying to keep their heads afloat every day, and one thing that I did was an introduce yourself thread, an opportunity for them to share like what are some challenges they're facing as small business owners, what are the awesome things that they've accomplished through their businesses, and what they're looking for in the community. And like everybody loves talking about themselves, right? So that's the opportunity for them to do so. Another thing, kind of like what Paula mentioned, was just being able to share being able to look at new members in the community and welcome them, whether it's a shout out in the community or an email, what have you. I think an important thing, though, with welcome emails, I like that, but then one thing to keep in mind is what are the other customer touch points? So, for example, if the account manager within the community are emailing that person, make sure you're not bombarding them, and you can even work together, collaborate, and create a really great newsletter or something to send that customer. Another thing that we have in the Lithium community is badges, and for me, I was actually a Lithium community member before I became the community manager, and this is just a fun way to incentivize them and get them started. So for example, if someone posts for the first time, if they reply for the first time, or if they get 5 kudos, there's different badges along the way to keep them encouraged and make them feel like, hey, I'm a valuable part of the community.
That's a really good points that you have in there. The welcome thread, I think, is something that's really good. One thing that I've been trying to do is sort of taking part in that with the community for CMX Hub and the group on Facebook. I think that there's just over 3,000 members in there now, and David Spinks over there, he actually does one of those things, and I've seen a lot of connections happening and starting to happen through there, especially when you're engaging your community to be those welcome ambassadors. Essentially just going, hey, here's everybody, asking them some questions and have people respond to that. I think it's a great way to get people involved and to be able to make those 1 or 2 connections, especially in groups and in forums that are rather large. The ability to have that, I think, is a great onboarding strategy. So David, you're here, so
yes.
We get to ask you. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Question number 1 is, what community platforms do you experience working with? And 2, how do you onboard community members to help them feel welcome? So the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, so platforms, PHPBB, vBulletin, Jive. If you can count it as a community platform, I guess. Oh no, I'm not even going to count it. It's a Microsoft SharePoint stuff, and that's pretty much it. But and Vanilla Forms. I gotta call out Vanilla because I love their platform.
I forgot Vanilla.
I was going to say, if I were to start a new bulletin forum myself, I would probably choose Vanilla first. I think that they're one of the first forum companies or platform companies that have actually embraced the concept of a community manager, and they put out a lot of great content, for community managers. So I think if you're going to start from someplace in a forum, start with somebody who kind of knows where you as a community manager will be. There's still, like all forums, there's stuff that could be improved, but I think Vanilla is one of the best ones out there. It's free, which is a big plus, or you can pay for their hosted platform and get all the goodies, features quicker than everybody else. But those are the platforms that I'm most familiar with. And then onboarding, I've been really fortunate in that I don't really have that as a problem, if you consider it a problem. Early on when I worked in gaming, it was really, as long as the game was decent, if you build it, they would come. The fan base would come almost automatically. And that's probably true for a lot of gaming. As long as you have something decent in place that's not horrible to use, they'll come to you. And then now that I'm in the business world, I have a closed community, so they only get in when we invite them or they ask to get in, and then we allow them. So we don't really have issues with the onboarding. It's just, yes, welcome, come on in. Doors open. Well, not open, but close.
You can talk through the screen. It's a slider. Sherry, how about you? Like, what do you guys do with Magento to make sure that you guys are welcoming and onboarding?
We're a bit similar to David in the fact that people are coming there trying to troubleshoot installations or create some sort of new innovation with the product, and so getting them to participate is not difficult. We do have introduction threads for our event groups, but not for the overall forum. One thing that we do is, that came out funny, every Monday I post a community digest, and so that actually has a roundup of everything that the community's been blogging about or podcasting about or whatnot that is Magento-centric in the last week. And then it also has a call out welcoming new members with a shout out to the guidelines and to let them know to reach out to me or the moderators. And then at the bottom it has local meetups and stuff that are going on that week, just so that people are aware of different ways that they can get involved in the community. And then when I reach out super specifically is either in responding to messages that they post where I jump in, or also every couple of weeks I look through who are our super users in that period. And if it's someone that I haven't talked to before, I'll definitely reach out and make sure I know a little bit about them, why they're involved, where they work, what kind of stuff they do, and just make sure that I'm definitely familiarizing myself with those who are really active.
Awesome. That's really cool. Paula, you were mentioning something in the side chat about that you guys were going to be doing something with video to the welcome board.
Yes, we're actually getting ready to launch V2 of our forums in a couple of weeks here. So one of our, it came up, Jen had mentioned the importance of the welcome board in onboarding. So one of the things that we really want to do to highlight it is have video on there. So we're going to be shooting video intros of our different staff members, doing a quickie video on what they do here at VHX, and also letting the community know a little bit about them. And then we're going to encourage community members to also add a quick video as part of their welcome chat, just to make the forums a little more lively. And since we are a video platform, it just fits in very well with our community.
That's really awesome. I love video so much, and I think that there's a really great way for it to start to be integrated in here.
One thing I wanted to bring up that I saw come through from Melissa on Twitter, which I don't think any of us touched on, so my apologies if someone did, but I know some communities actually set up a welcome community within the membership, so that there's actually a set group of members who are dedicated to welcoming new members when they see them join.
Yeah, and big ups to Melissa over there on Twitter. She's been rocking it out. So thanks a lot. And I think she said that she is an expat that's actually living in Dubai right now. So thanks for tuning in from Dubai. That's cool. So rolling into question 4, and if you guys have any questions over there on Twitter, make sure you fire them away. We'll get them and throw them up on screen. But into question 4, how do you set up your platform to make sure that you are listening to key conversations? More than just welcoming, but you really want to plug in and listen to people. How do you set that up?
Sure. So for me, notifications play a really big part. One thing I should explain, which is a little bit unique about my current position and what I do with forums, is I oversee the forums for VHX, but our community members all have their own sites for their film or for their series, and they have the ability to set up forums within their sites. So in addition to moderating our forums, I'm also actively looking at the forums that our filmmakers are using. So one minute I might be chatting with one of our publishers on our forum, and another minute I might be talking to somebody who's on a fitness forum for one of our publishers. So it's actually really fun because you get to have a lot of different conversations, but because I'm managing so many different forums, notifications is such a huge part of what I'm doing. I've used data clips before, and so that I would receive notifications whenever somebody starts a new thread, whenever a new site within our platform launches a forum, I would be able to see it right away. And then I also just make sure that I'm following key threads that I know are going to be really important to respond to in a timely manner. So if something's controversial, like if on a site's forum, customers are upset because a program's no longer available or there was a change in content, I make sure that I follow those so that responding to those really quickly, looping in the site administrator if I have to, and then following threads on our forums that I know have a lot of activity, so it doesn't seem like we're leaving people hanging.
I think for me it's pretty much similar. For Lithium, we have, like first there's a automated trigger so that if anything doesn't get answered within 24 hours, it automatically sends an email to me and the community team so that we can manage that and make sure that we get an answer up soon. Another thing that I do is kind of touching on what Paula said about important topics, and that varies across every community, and it varies across companies as well in your role within the company, but I subscribe to certain searches within the Lithium community, so that anything related to that search, anything new, like whether it's a reply or a new post in a forum, that will automatically get sent to me, and I can take a look at that. Another thing that we're in the process of working on is something called Lithium Social Web, so that takes not only forum activity, but posts across social as well, so we can set up certain tools and triggers for our product team, maybe certain product ideas, feedback, things like that, that gets routed to the product team, and that's all automated. It's all automatic, so that we can get people the right answers at the right time.
Yeah, and we have on our platform we have very similar tools. And I don't use searches, but that's a good idea. We additionally to everything else there that you guys mentioned, on our platform we actually have a sentiment analysis engine that helps us identify comments that are positive or negative. Unfortunately, the industry I'm in is cybersecurity, so general talking comes out as sounding very negative, because just the things that we talk about, viruses and hacking and stuff like that, tends to not be positive within this engine. So we have to do some extra work to kind of filter that out, but that helps us track people that are having positive discussions and that kind of thing, and it highlights certain discussions that are getting a lot of traffic. I use a lot of widgets in my platform that tell me the most recent things that happened. I tend to review, right now it's small enough where I can just about review everything that happened within a 24-hour period, but eventually that won't be the case. At a minimum, I try to see the titles of things, and generally that'll help filter out what's going on where. It's just so you can maybe get an idea of what it is. If someone's having an issue, usually you can tell by the title of whatever it is they posted, and get them help. We do the same things. We have we don't have them configured right now, but we do have the ability to have a notification if a question goes a certain amount of time without answering. So it's just a matter of turning that on when we need to. Right now we're in the early stages of the community. We've got a new project that's rolling out that's going to move a lot of new people in the next couple of months, and so then we'll have different ways of monitoring things then.
Another thing that I do to help listen is when there's something sensitive that it makes sense to have its own board for. So for example, we release security patches semi-often, it's like quarterly basically, and those are things where we definitely want to make sure that we're on top of helping people with, because it's not something where other community members are going to have experience with right away, as well as maybe something that we need to address internally with our team that created the patches. So we do have a board specifically for security patches, and actually every single time there's a post in there I get an email, which is a little crazy, but it's worth it just to help manage that situation and make sure that we're really addressing what we need to with those patches.
And actually, with that email thing that you were talking about, I know that sometimes with bigger communities and getting those emails, it can really flood your inbox, like you were talking about in the side chat, Sherry. But we did actually get a couple of shout outs for that too. And also just on Twitter, in case you haven't seen, got some more shout outs for the video as well, what you were talking about earlier, Paula. So shout outs for everyone. Awesome. So let's check here. Let's move on to question 5. How do you guys configure emails and other automation tools to help scale your reach? Do you guys have any tips, any sort of ways that you set those up? I know we were touching on it a little bit, but what do you guys have to say?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jen.
This question is so
Literally
awesome.
everyone at once. That was awesome.
I don't think I've ever seen that happen, actually, but that was awesome. So for emails, what Sherry was saying about, let's say, getting bombarded by emails, one thing that we do for our community is taking a look at the email subscriptions that are set up and making sure that we're not bombarding them. So we have like weekly emails, daily emails, and also we provide the opportunity for users to customize that themselves, so that if they want to get, that email every time a post is, if there's a new post in a certain forum, they can definitely do so. If they want to just get a weekly digest or a daily digest, they can definitely do that as well. And one thing too is to always just be open to what your community users are saying. If across the board they're saying, hey, we're getting too many emails, that's a good opportunity to take a step back and look at, again, the different touch points that your company has has to the customer or to the community user. So, one example is that the community that I ran, I found that, hey, they're actually getting bombarded every day from different teams within the company, and let's see what we can do to consolidate all this into a customer newsletter. So in that way, I think there's a lot of different opportunities for you to take a look at the different communications that you're sending to your customers and make sure that that's a good experience for them.
Yeah, I've done similar things in the past where we would do, rather than bombarding people with emails every day, we'd do a weekly roundup of this is what happened in the forums this week, and it would show the most popular posts and any new post, and would just be a quick bird's eye view of what was going on in the discussions. What we do now is really great because community members can decide what they want to be receiving notifications on. If they respond to a thread, they're automatically following it, and they'll get an email notification if somebody else responds to it. But if at any point they want to leave the discussion, they can just click unfollow, and they'll stop getting email notifications every time somebody's writing into that. I mentioned before we're doing a version 2 of our blog or of our forums right now. So part of that's going to also include having specific boards set up for certain topics, so that if you want to follow a specific board and get notifications, not just for threads, but anytime something new happens in that board, you can. So if you're really curious about feature requests or whatever topic it may be, you can choose to follow that and get more emails if you want them.
They covered it. I'm good. We're all jumping in there. I know that for me, just for my notifications, we have digest emails and stuff like that that go out on a daily basis, or however the user wants to receive them. And of course at the bottom of all of ours we have tips for using the platform. Things that can help them get more out of it, and hopefully that gets them to share it. Being a closed community, though, they're going to invite coworkers that are going to have the same wants and interests as they do. So it's not a big deal for us to really grow that way.
Good stuff, man. You guys are crushing it. Let's see here. So we've already gone through question 4. We just went through question 5. I think that means, if my math is correct, we're on to question 6, which is how do you plan out? This is a good one. How do you plan out gamification elements such as leaderboards, badges, ranks? I'm getting shout outs in the side chat for the ability to count, so I'll let you guys talk because you're a lot smarter than me. So how do you make it fun? How do you gamify it up?
All right, so we'll take a step back and just talk about gamification, right? It's Pavlov's dog, right? So what we're trying to do with gamification is to train our users to do the things that we want them to do. So when you look at gamification, you don't do gamification for gamification's sake, right? You have to decide what you're trying to encourage them to do. If that's share content and invite more people, then you build your gamification around that. But know that you're going to have people that are going to game the system and just be in it for the points. You're going to have those people that just want to run to the top. They want to be the best of the best, and they're going to cheat, and they're going to stretch the rules and that kind of thing. You have to just be very careful. I am not a big fan of gamification in communities, and unless it's a very specific need. Probably the best need that I can think of is to get them used to using the site and give them a mission that takes them through the site and how to use the features. But beyond that, I don't necessarily see the value in gamification of other elements.
Yeah, I actually really agree with that a lot. I think it totally depends on the community and what you're trying to get out of it. We don't do a ton of gamification with our forums. The only thing we do within our individual forums is we do have a badge if you're considered an expert member, and an expert member just means that you're somebody that is either continuously participating in the forums, you're somebody that we have done a profile on for our blog or for our best practices guides, or you're one of our top publishers, just because it kind of sparks a discussion when people see that badge of, oh, what does that mean to be an expert member, and to listen to what that community member says. Other than that, don't really do anything with points or gamification on this particular platform. One platform I can think of where I think it does really work well is this website called Spark People, which is a fitness website, and you can join certain groups, and there's certain forums that you can participate in based on if you're trying to take up running, if you're trying to lose a certain amount of weight, if you're trying to change certain things about your diet. And the gamification there is you receive points based on your participation, and you receive these bigger trophy icons the more points you have. And in that type of community, I think it works really well because the whole point of it is they want you to keep logging on and engaging so you don't fall off the bandwagon with whatever whatever goal it is you're trying to reach. So that's like an exception to the gamification rule for me.
I could add further to this. China has come up with this thing called Sesame Credit, and it is a game that is all about gamification of being a good citizen. Basically, it's an app that you download, and by doing normal things that China considers to be a good citizen, you'll get these Sesame credits, and these Sesame credits can buy things. And it is probably the worst case scenario of gamification. There's a YouTube channel called Extra Credits, and I'll tweet out the link, and they have a whole little video on this gamification of, being a good Chinese citizen. And China isn't the best for human rights, and so it has things in it that encourage you to maybe rat out your neighbor who isn't as good a Chinese citizen as you are. And people that jump in early, it's not required by law now, but it will be required by law in the near future. So if you can imagine that, a situation where gamification has gotten to the point where it's almost Big Brother-like, and that it's adapting how you as a person move about in your world. It's scary, and I guess I just worry that as much gamification as we talk about these days, that this is the ultimate worst ending for it. So buyer beware on gamification. It is really like a Pavlovian thing. We're teaching them to do things the way that we want them to do, but we just have to make sure that we're doing it for the right reasons and that we're not hurting them in the process. So I'll tweet that out real quick. It's an interesting video to watch.
You're saying that the government doesn't always do things for the right purposes?
There's two things that I say you can't talk about in my communities, and that's politics and religion, and we're done.
It's actually another hangout for someone else to host.
Politics and religion. That'll be a fun one.
Yeah, that is not a panel on CMAT, folks. We don't have a politics and religion panel for CMAT.
So actually, I agree with what David said about and Paula too, about it depending on what kind of community you run, because I think that if you do gamification right, with the right measures in place, it can actually work really well. And not to brag, but I think that the Lithium community does a great job of this. So just a couple of things to consider. There's actually like a science in gamification. If you look at, say, the metrics behind each user's behavior and gamify things based on that. So not just, for example, not just only on how many posts they have, but for example, how many solutions they provided for other people and things like that. You can start to measure and award people based on those. If someone's being really helpful or really insightful, you can encourage them more and be able help them move up within the ladder. One thing that we do on the Lithium community that I think does really that works really well is a top contributor. So looking at, again, metrics and recognizing the top contributors for that month, giving them kudos, giving them a shout out, and then pointing to what they contribute that's of value. And I think that's the key for gamification too, is that it has to be a value.
What's
a value?
A top contributor? No, what's a top contributor? Is it by sheer volume?
So that's top kudoed users for the month. But we do look at.
They have to get like a thumbs up or something on their posts.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and I think
it's a matter of value.
Yeah, it's a matter of value too. So that's the thing. Don't just base it on quantity. Base it on quality as well. Quality of their posts. And I think we're very lucky in that it's very true. Like a lot of our top contributors are the ones in forums helping other people out, so they get a lot of kudos, or they contribute really great ideas, so they get a lot of kudos based on that. Another thing, so I think a lot of it is just based on numbers and connecting those users to the numbers and looking at that overall. So don't just look at, hey, this person posted 100 times in this month, but what is this user saying, and how can I reward based on quality and tie in some quantity as well.
Yeah, I think those are really good points and very similar to what we do as well. One thing to make sure of too is if you are going to dig very deeply into gamification, you definitely, and Ryan Olson, who's in the Chicago area, used to always comment on this, but you definitely need to make sure that you understand game design and how all that works, because it's not just setting up ranks and badges, like David said. It's getting into what is the purpose of that, what is the value of that. And there's actually a book by Kevin Murbach I read that was super helpful in helping you figure out how to construct gamification systems called For the Win, which I can tweet that out. But if you are looking at even implementing ranks and badges, it's very helpful just to get you an idea of intrinsic versus extrinsic rewards and things of that nature. So.
Fantastic. There's also when I typed in Kevin's name into Google with For the Win, it looks like there's a talk that he gave too. It was back from 2012, but it was like a talk at Wharton College, and it's like 25 minutes. So I have that queued up. I'm gonna definitely be watching that. Awesome.
Before you move on.
No.
Before you move on.
You know what? I'm not going to move on.
I know.
I'm not going to move on. With that deep register, you can talk about whatever you want to.
Yes. So for me, I think that kudos are good. I think that what has worked more successfully for me than anything else is, if you've ever seen Finding Forrester, it's unexpected gifts at unexpected times, and that is just take your top people and, without really warning them, send them some swag, and just there it says, "You're doing a great job. We really appreciate it." And what happens is they get this box of whatever you've sent them, and they suddenly rush back to the forums or group or whatever, and they're like, "Oh my God, did you see what they sent me? They just sent me this out of nowhere. I had no idea it was coming." And it really helps build the hype. And gets other people interested, be like, well, dang, maybe I can step it up the game and get something too. But you can't have a system in place where they can achieve that, right? So it's got to be random, it's got to be unexpected. But I've found that that's worked really, really well. Just get them something and surprise them.
Actually, adding to that, David makes a really good point, and I think one thing that a lot of community managers run into is budget problems. So just another thing to add is that it doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to actually, eke out like a budget for this. But, one thing that I did in my previous community when I ran into budget problems was just write a simple thank you card. A handwritten card can actually go a long way, and I actually had a customer take a picture of my really ugly looking chicken scratch thank you card writing and tweet that to the company. So that was really awesome. And it can be something as simple as a thank you card. It can be food. Everybody loves food. Anyone who has been on a CMG or Hangout with me knows that I love food. But I think I guess my point is, don't get bogged down or don't get constricted by, this is going to cost a lot of money, or I have to propose a new budget to my team. Instead, just think about the small things that you can do to delight your customers, or to delight your users, sorry.
No, I totally agree with that. One of the things I just chatted about is what I do with some of our publishers as a thank you when they let us interview them for a blog post, or they let us do a case study for best practices. Since we're a film company, we somehow acquired all of these old VHS tapes, and we have them around the office as decorations. So me and a couple of our other staff members spray painted them gold and created labels for them, so we send them out as trophies. And it's just a really fun, inexpensive thing that people tweet about and really love.
I want a gold VHS tape now, just so bad. You said it before. I didn't realize 10 minutes ago that I wanted a gold VHS tape. Now everybody does.
I want one too.
Yeah, seriously.
I called it. I think that's
as long as my VHS tape is the video Fern Gully, I'll take that. But all right, so we have a fun question, and I'm glad we have time for this question, because I feel like we always end up getting one of these with 4 minutes left, and we never have time to really unpack it. So let's talk about ROI and metrics, and how do you report those metrics from your forums? How do you go? There's a lot to talk about, so somebody start unpacking.
Great. So for again, it is a little unique for me because I'm not just looking at what's happening in our forums. I'm also looking at what's happening in our publishers' forums. So aside from tracking how many comments are being made in a week, how many people are viewing threads, I'm also looking at which sub-communities within our communities are starting forums every week, and how replies are going in those forums, which 5 communities within those publishers tend to be the most active, because it just gives me a good sense of what publishers does forums work best for, so that I know who I should be suggesting it to and who I should be helping out with launching forums a little bit. One of the greatest metrics that, one of the greatest tools that our product team put in for me that really helps is our view count, because they took out any staff or administrators viewing as being counted. So the views that I'm looking at are actual views from our community members, which is really, really helpful to me. I started, like I said, we're doing V2 of our forums right now, and we're just kind of in V1 when I started here beginning of last summer. And I think metrics can be really helpful for you to not give up on something, because when I would first post threads, since this was such a new concept to a lot of our community members, I wouldn't see a ton of replies, but I would see, oh, 250 people viewed this post that I just put up. So even though they're not necessarily chiming in, they're reading what we're talking about, and that's a worthwhile place to start.
I think Joe Cottrell said really well that metrics can be super useful, but one thing to consider is, what are you measuring? You know, that ties back to your business goals or your business objectives, even your team goals. So being able to take a look at that first, and what metrics in the community can link to that, that's super important. And you know, one thing that small disclaimer, I hate numbers, I hate metrics. So when I said in the chat, good job, Dom, for counting, 4 through 6. I actually meant that. So, one thing to keep in mind is that if you don't know how to do that, just ask. Like, ask your manager, ask your team. I have a super awesome team of people around me ready to help me tie those numbers together. So, think about what your business objectives are and what community metrics support that. I think another thing to do is tie it into your community plan and objectives. So, in the last CMJR Hangout, they talked about this a little bit, like looking at your initiatives and how that's been a success, and tying the metrics in and being able to show that story. So, for example, one thing that we ran last month was a contest in the community, and I was able to show this story based on metrics on the amount of engagement in the forums that had increased because of this contest, and being able to show that story to, say, my e-staff or to my manager, like, that was hugely beneficial. So I think, like, the thing is with metrics is there's a huge pool of them that you can pull from, but being able to take the right ones and connect that story for people.
Yep, I agree. I think that, to quote an old boss of mine, "In God we trust, all others bring data." For us in my community, we're slowly moving to become a support-based community where our users will go to our community and submit their support tickets there. So we actually have a calculated algorithm that is basically call deflection, and we can say, based on certain ways that the users use our site, that if they go to a question that has an answer and stop there, it got viewed, we assume that a certain number or a certain percentage of those people that do that are getting their answers and not submitting a support case. So maybe it's 1% of those users, and then we do that based on a couple of different metrics, whether they go to a search that's successful or that kind of thing. But we don't say 100% of it is all case deflection, but we figured out a certain percentage of it is. And we tie that into how much it costs per case, and we come up with a nice number that we can take to the C-levels and say that based on our best guess, and here's the criteria that we use to define that, and we put it all out on the table, we think we saved X number of dollars over them creating an email and starting a case that way and using human resources and other technical staff. So in that way, we can actually say, there is value here, because we can say that, based on this, maybe a case didn't get opened, and there you have a little way of connecting the dots. I think that for other ways of connecting that ROI, it gets harder and harder. That one's just a good example, and it's not a perfect example because we make assumptions throughout the whole thing. We assume that them going to a question that's answered is a case deflection 1% of the time, 5% of the time, that kind of thing. But that's an assumption. We don't know for sure if that's a true number or not. And it just trying to connect those dots is so hard in community because it's intrinsic. I often joke that I once tried to figure out the ROI on my relationship with my wife, and I ended up on the couch for a week. So, how do you put value on the relationships you build and the connections that you build? Really and truly, community to me, I always say ROI is the reciprocity of influence, right? We give our users influence as they become better users, they become, more well known, their influence becomes greater, and we hope that they share that influence. And as they share that influence with us and with other people they know, it comes in and maybe brings it back to your community. Their 15 minutes of fame could help someone else join, and so work on that. How do you measure that? How do you put a number on that influence gain that you're getting in your community and from these people? So I don't know. I don't think there's a perfect solution for ROI. I think that for now it's a lot of best guesses, and you do what you need to do. In an early community, growth is a great measurement because you can say that you got X number of new people, but once your community matures, that no longer really has the value that it did early on, because you've kind of hit that cycle where it's self-replicating. I think that keeping track of that number is important, because if it takes a dive, then you've got something seriously wrong going on and you need to look at things. So always keep track of it. You should always watch your data, because the hidden things in there, you never know what you'll find. I mean, one of the companies I worked with, we saw a month-over-month spike in visitors from certain countries, and based on that, we decided to localize some of the content to fit them, just because all of a sudden we had a huge influx. So, definitely watch the data, but you're going to have to pick and choose and hunt and peck to really find the ROI.
Yeah, you made some really good points. One thing that Jen pointed out about knowing your business objectives. So there's a couple of ways kind of that we tie together both what David said and what Jen said, and probably what Paula said, but I have no memory, so I apologize. But I actually do pool our data like every 2 weeks and every month. That data is actually shared with several on our executive leadership team as well as our product management team, because they want to know what's going on in the community, and so I have to learn how to transcribe that activity to their language. So sometimes that's looking at growth, retention, and activity, which are very important to those who are stakeholders in our community, and sometimes that's looking at, okay, so we just launched this product, like how much of the conversation is shifting to this new product that we want to see adoption on, or people from our documentation team will come to me and want to know what topics people are having the most questions about around this new product, so that they know how to address that with documentation and where to really focus their documentation efforts. There's a lot of ways like that where you can dig into the metrics to kind of help guide the rest of your team, as long as you can communicate the value of the community to them and they can see why they should come to you with those questions, to really help improve their job as well. When they see that value too, it makes you super valuable. And then the other thing that I wanted to touch on Evan Hamilton did a talk at CMX in New York that I just shared a link to. And he was sharing a few different ways that you could show ROI in your community. And one that I don't think we mentioned was being able to look at how your community platform affects your NPS score. So one way you can do that is by inserting a question into your NPS on basically related to the community, like did you visit the forums or did you find them helpful, and then see how those who visited the forums or found them helpful, how their NPS score compares to those who didn't, and just see if there's any correlation there.
Yeah, that talk by Evan, I feel like I referenced that. I feel like I've referenced it like twice a week for the last like 2 months. Whenever people like bring up or this conversation gets hit on at all, so definitely check that out. And you know, when it's just, yeah, this is, I had a thought and it completely went away because I had it all formulated, and then Sherry started talking about Evan's talk, and then it went completely out the window. But yeah, that's that's really good stuff there. And I do want to give an awesome shout out to everybody that has been over on Twitter today. I do have one question that I'm going to pull in really quick, but a big shout out to Laura Dohan, to Jen, who's been over there, who have actually been relating everything we've been talking about today to friends gifts. So that's fun. So make sure you check that out. But let's bring in this question here. Also, Alex, this is from Alex. How awesome is Alex's tiled background there? It's just amazing. What up, Bill Murray? But Alex asks, is there any game-changing predictions, untapped needs for 2016 in relation to community management? And you can even take this a step further and say in relation to forums. So what do you guys think there? Any predictions or untapped needs for the upcoming year?
Two things, I think. Better reporting on the back end. I think that's the failing of every single forum platform, community platform out there, is that they give you really canned reports that may not hold a lot of value. I think that I can't speak of Lithium because I'm not familiar with it, so I'll let Jen touch on that. But the platforms that I have worked with, it seems like, you know, they'll give you the active, the participating, and, you know, the lurkers, the people that are just looking, the people that kind of respond to things, and the people that are actually posting things. And that's their big metric, and it's not really always a good way of counting things. And then two, I think that in the world of haters and people bullying online, I think we need to shift from post-moderation to pre-moderation. And by that I mean that a lot of times people will post things and it gets through, and then we go back behind the scenes, you know, after the fact and say, oh, that's rough, we need to pull that out. I think that what we need to do is we need to have filters on the front end so that the minute somebody submits something and it uses certain keywords, that it spits it right back to them and says, hey, we don't allow this in our community. Before you can post this, you need to clean it up. And it should do that for private messaging and for normal forum posts, and it should be configurable so you can decide what is good and what is bad. I think that being reactionary is no longer acceptable. I think we need to be proactive. So as you go to type something in and comment to somebody, the system says, you know, this language is a little harsh, maybe tone it down or take a minute and try again before it'll even let them submit it. So that's my thought.
Sorry.
Did he just drop the mic? Was the mic dropped? Does anybody want to pick it up?
Go ahead, Paula.
No, I was just saying I absolutely love that idea about being proactive, and I definitely agree it should pertain to trolls and avoiding things you don't want in the forums ahead of time. One of the things that we're kind of doing with this V2 of filters is, I think this hasn't come up yet, but I think it's very important to know what you want you and your community to be getting out of your forums in terms of what's going to be there. I've worked before in forums that were very customer support based, and with our particular forums, I'm very adamant that it is not the place for customer support. It's a place for community engagement. We have our help guides and we have our customer support email for that, mainly because I didn't want that team to have to be looking into places for questions to be coming through so that they could focus everything in one spot. So one of the things that we're doing with filtering is people oftentimes, even though I have disclaimers about, oh, if you're looking for customer or technical support help, please go to this contact form instead, people still people don't pay attention to that all the time and still want to post tech support questions because they think they'll get a faster response that way. So one of the things we're building in is filters so that if somebody is typing in something that actually looks like a tech support request, they'll get a pop-up notification saying, oh, is this a tech support request? If so, this link right here is actually the fastest place for us to get to this. So I think that there's a lot to be done with sort of being proactive versus reactive on a lot of different fronts and forums.
All right, Jen, what you got? Last to go. Ready, set, go.
I'm just looking at the chat. For anyone who's never been on OCMG or Hangout, you should, just for the chat. But I think, Paula and David said some really great points. Oh gosh, I think one thing that I'm looking forward to in 2016 is, as your community grows, there's a lot of contributions that your members make, right? And there's a lot of areas of expertise that they have. So one question is, how do you measure that? How do you leverage that in a way that makes sense, in a way that's scalable? So one thing that I'm looking forward to is with Lithium, we're able to identify areas of expertise for certain community users and leverage those. So for example, if one of our super users is really good with development or with gamification or with certain areas of community management, we can pull that out and highlight that and use that to continue to grow community engagement within our community. I think I just said community like a billion times in one sentence.
Well, it's awesome that you said community that many times. So, hey, that is it. We made it, guys. It is 3 o'clock on the East Coast. Thanks so much for tuning in. This was really awesome. If you didn't get a chance to catch all of it, make sure you watch again. You'll see us smirking at the bottom. At one point, I hit myself in the face with headphones, so it's definitely worth a second watch. Hey, Sherry, do we have anything like cool coming up here pretty soon?
Yeah, weird lead-in, but CMAD, as we already discussed, is Monday. So go check out cmad.co. We have the awards nominations are on there. Finalists will be posted later today. We have 24 panels lined up for Monday, depending on your time zone. They start Monday Eastern time at midnight, and then go around the clock. We have really awesome people from around the entire world involved. There's a lot that I have never met before or talked to before, so I'm really excited about all the new faces this year, and it should be really good. There's also, if you want to check to see if there's a meetup in your area for Community Manager Appreciation Day, just go to the meetups tab on cmad.co, and you'll see quite a few listed there. So.
Fantastic. Well, thanks a lot, guys, and we look forward to seeing all of you guys for CMAD.
Thanks, everyone.
Adios.